Why do people hate car dealers so much? Well, as we pull up the Urban Dictionary, we quickly type in stealership. And what does it spit out for us? Well, it talks about a place that charges ridiculous amounts of money for routine auto maintenance. They also sell parts at somewhat reasonable prices, but better deals on OEM parts can be found elsewhere. The BMW stealership wanted $300 for an oil change as an example. Now that's not uncommon, and every time you talk to most people, they dread the moment that they have to walk into the dealerships or quote-unquote stealerships, because that's the feel and the sentiment that many people actually have when they actually have to interact with a dealership in any way. Car dealers, while there's many car dealers that operate with integrity, quality, respect, and they would definitely give you the fairest price available, they're transparent and open and honest, the fact remains is there's a whole pile of dealers that don't operate that way. They operate under the table, they don't disclose information, they try to rip you off, whether it's parts, service, sales of new cars, or everything from used to new and in between. They want to take your used car trade-in for virtually nothing, but they want to charge you maximum dollars for your new car. You go down to the parts service, and unless you're from a corporation, they're going to rip you off and charge you 2 to 3 times much more for that part that you need for your new vehicle. They're literally some of the worst reputations in the industry, in any type of industry, really, for the quality and what people have to deal with and endure when they interact with a car dealer. I want to deal with all the different perspectives and share that with you today about why, in fact, people have anxiety and really prefer not to even deal with car manufacturers or OEMs or specifically car dealerships, and why often they are referred to as stealerships. Let's take this from the top, and it all starts with advertising. I mean, a lot of dealerships advertise cars priced here. Here's $1 from this, from that. Great deal, only X amount down. This is your price. But we all know that that's all nonsense. And the worst problem is when you see these numbers, everybody gets their back up. Everybody knows that there's likely something loaded behind that. If they're saying $39,995 from, then we know that by the time we walk out the door with the extras, taxes, levies, admin fees, charges, all kinds of gap insurance, you name it, that $39,995 quickly becomes $48,662. And so unfortunately, a lot of people just don't trust dealerships because they know that everything being told to them has something hiding, something hidden behind it, some nonsense, some agenda to extract every last penny out of your pocket. And so often when you see prices, you always want to ask out the door price. When you walk into a dealership and say, I saw this ad, you said it was $39,995. I know that's a lie. I know that's nonsense. Give it to me straight. What is that vehicle that you're charging that for? And I want to know what the out the door price is. I don't want extras. Give it to me straight with taxes all in, no extras. I want to know how much I'm paying for that car out the door because I'm just willing to buy it today. And so you need to ask those hard questions. So right away, we know that there's always extras that are tacked on, and they're never very transparent about that sale. The other aspect, of course, is they're often trying to manipulate you, trying to squeeze every dollar out of your used car trade. And while we know they're a business and we know we have to appreciate the fact that they need to make $1 somewhere. I mean, they got to keep the lights on. They got to pay that salesperson, the GM, the parts department. I mean, they have to keep the lights on. They have to keep the concierge service in, the coffee, and they basically have to keep it all running. There's marketing costs. I mean, the entire show costs cash. So I can appreciate that dealerships have to make money. But at excess amounts of money on my expense, no, that's quite fine. Thank you very much. And so they're always trying to get you on both ends. They want to extract as much money on the front end of that new car sales, but they also want to try to manipulate you to get as much out of your used car trade-in. That's why you never really want to say that you're trading in your used car. Whenever you're negotiating a deal, you always want to talk about that new vehicle, out the door price. Don't tell them you're taking in-house financing or otherwise. Maybe imply that you might and ask the questions. You always want to know what their in-house financing is. Before you even go to the dealership though, you should always check with your own bank. Do you have a home line of credit? Do you have your own money? Whatever that looks like, it's always good to know what you're up against so that when you go into the dealership, you can ask those hard questions. What sort of finance rates do you have? That way it gets them all warm and fuzzy. And as a matter of fact, you can often take their financing as long as you have the ability without penalty to close that off and pay it off with no time. You can sign up if it means you're getting a better deal. Then you can often take that financing, pay it off after 1 month and be done with it. So usually that's a great option. But we know that there's always hidden agendas. So that's why you never want to tell them about your used vehicle trade-in until at the very end. So you get your out-the-door price, you figure out what you want to get for that. If you're happy with that, and if you've got your finances figured out, then you can often say, look, yeah, how much are you willing to give for my car? Now, you should do some of this homework in advance, and I just dealt with a friend of mine recently who was in the same predicament. He found this beautiful little Toyota pickup truck he kind of grilled him, grinded him. He knows the price. He knows where he's at with that, and he feels he got a fair deal on the truck. But now he's debating, I've got to get rid of my old Ford F-150. It's 10 years older thereabouts. It needs a little bit of minor work. It's not a mess, but it needs a little bit of work. How much, I wonder, can I get for this truck? Well, my advice to him was, before you go in dealing with the new truck, the Toyota, maybe post your truck privately for 1 to 2 weeks. See what the market has to offer. If the market's strong and there's people kicking down doors, because we know a lot of used trucks were hard to come by for a while, and a good quality used pickup truck can often be sold for a top dollar. I truly believe certain vehicles, like trucks for example, are often worth trying on the used car market first to sell them, because it's a little bit of a hassle dealing with some of those tire kickers and those clowns that show up and mess you around. At Marketplace, we know they say they're coming, they don't, or they're creeps, or they're checking out your house. Never meet them alone, by the way. If you're selling your used vehicle, always have somebody with you. Be in a well-lit area. Don't do it in a back alley in the middle of the night. Nobody knows where you're going. Those are words of advice. We know the horror stories. They're real. So now I said, try selling it privately. If that doesn't work, then what you do is you've got the out-the-door price on the new truck. See what they're willing to come at you with your truck as a trade-in. If you don't like that trade-in value, walk. We know that they're going to knock some dollars off. We know there's the whole concept of retail versus wholesale. Just because you see the best of the best used truck on your market scouring the classifieds go for $15,995 doesn't mean yours that's similar but it needs a little bit of work is going to go for $15,995. That's full retail value. More likely, you have to recognize you're probably going to have to give up 10, 15, maybe 20% off your vehicle, because dealers are now dealing in wholesale. They have to think about, are they going to clean it up, put it back on the lot, or are they just going to send it to the auction and they're selling it as a wholesale price? So they have to be prepared for that, and as a result, you're going to want to probably have your own calibration in your mind as to what realistically the vehicle's worth, because you have to assume in some level, particularly the worse shape your vehicle might be in, the more likelihood it's going on the lot as a wholesale product. So with that said, you always want to try to get the maximum dollar. And we all know these dealerships are always trying to take us on both ends, 3 ends at once. They're trying to hose you on the sale of the new vehicle, so do your homework there. They want to hose you on financing if they can, and they want to get you in the door and extract a few more dollars there if you can lock you in. And they definitely want to hose you on a trade-in. So if they can get you 3 ways from Sunday, they've got to win. So that's why they just garner this reputation. And a lot of people come out of there feeling just greasy. You know, a lot of people, that's why the whole idea of a lot of these OEMs, we're talking about Hyundai and Kia potentially getting on board with online sales, as we're seeing, you know, doing through like with Amazon, for example. A lot of people are getting to the point where they just like click, click, click. They know what the price is, whether they like it or they don't. No dicker, no falter, just basically sign up. If you like the price, you do. If you don't, there's no extras, there's no shivs, there's none of that questionable business. And so that's why the idea of the online marketing strategy or online sales seems more appealing to a lot of people, because they're not having to deal with those salespeople that are going back and forth. Oh, let me talk to my manager. That whole idea of, oh, I've got to talk to my manager. They go scoot down the road, they come back, they say, oh, this back and forth game, we know it's nonsense. They go in there, they make some jokes, they point and wave. Half the time it's not even about dollars, and I've seen this. I've been in the car business, and I've seen it long enough that sometimes they'll say, yeah, I'm not taking that. And then the rest of the 8 to 9 minutes that they're in there, they're joking about, look at the husband's hair. What's up with those shoes? Did you see that car they drove in with? That's the kind of garbage that you're hearing in the background. You just don't hear it because they're in the closed office. What my experience has been is get the best out the door price, make sure you have your best financing options, check your own bank and your own financing first before you go shopping, and as well know what your trade-in's worth before you get into this negotiation, because there's really three major components. But so many people get hosed, and that's why these dealerships garner this reputation as stealerships. It just seems such a lack of transparency, trash that they throw on there. My experience, I had a dealer recently, I went in there, I was looking at a used Rubicon Jeep Wrangler. I thought, hey, this would be kind of fun and cute. We're not pretending they're great value, and we're certainly not pretending that they're best quality, but I thought for a summer vehicle, this could be a fun little rig. I went in there, I drove it, I wheeled, I dealed. First thing they come, they throw the piece of paper on the table and they say, all right, no, this is good. What kind of money do you have in mind? Just looking at what your thoughts are. And then they come out, we just got to charge this. And they had glass etching on there as one of the items. And AMVIC, which is in Alberta, it's a regulated a fee that has to go on these vehicles. It's not a large sum of money, but they put these fees on there and they say, well, we have to charge you this and we have to charge you that. And I said, see, that's nonsense right there. Glass etching, don't want it. I don't care. You chose to put it on. That has nothing to do with me. And AMVIC, that's cost of doing business. These OMVIC and AMVIC dealers that use you as a scapegoat, that should not be passed down to the consumer. But often they try to do that. So watch out for those AMVIC or OMVIC fees. If you're in Canada, US have other fees as well. Be careful. They're all trying to put extra fees, admin, tire levy. Some things you have to pay legally, other things you don't. Make sure that you're not getting rooked. But people just have this perception, and it's not unfounded, that a lot of dealers are trying to take people for a proverbial ride. And then it gets worse. So you've bought your car, you're driving this car for 2 or 3 years, all of a sudden there's a problem. I'm sure it's got warranty on it yet. Yeah, I think we're 2 years into a 3-year warranty. You take it into the dealership, and I've actually had this where dealerships give you a lot of that pushback and runaround and try to give you like, well, you know what? I don't know if the warranty covers that. That's actually a wear item. And then they try to get you snookered and try to charge extras, and they still, a lot of times warranty items end up coming out of there and you're still paying some money. I should pay $0. But I've actually personally experienced that where even a warranty related item ends up coming out and you're having to pay some money. So a lot of times dealers are pushing back. Even worse, if you buy an extended warranty, that's where it really gets rough. That's where sometimes the third-party extended warranty companies or vendors are often really pushing back. And you have to do a special request. The dealer on your behalf requests for that, and then they often come back rejected. And that is so frustrating. That's why I'm not the biggest fan of extended warranties, because I truly believe there's so many weasel clauses in there, and unless you're a lawyer and you really know how to read between the lines, quite often they'll reject a lot of these claims and the claims that you really need. And so that it's events like that where you get hosed on these extended warranties, or you take your vehicle in under warranty and trying to get it, do a full over, say, look, my warranty's expiring next month. I want to get the vehicle run through. I want your shop to do a good through the vehicle, make sure everything's tick-tock. And then lo and behold, yeah, it's good, green light, no problems. Yeah, you got 50% left on your tires, but other than that, everything's good to go. 3 months later, wham, you got a big catastrophic failure. But it was a leak apparently that was happening. And you thought you saw a weep under there once because you popped your head under there and you thought you saw a kind of a weepy area on the pan gasket. But then all of a sudden, it started puking really badly 3 months out. And then you go to the dealer and you say, well, I thought I had mentioned that. He said, well, it was fine at the time. But yeah, you know what? Now, unfortunately, you're under warranty there, boy. And so you're going to have to pay up. And so there you are, stuck holding the bag. All of a sudden, you got yourself a $900 repair bill because they didn't want to own up and cover you while you actually had warranty. That's another greasy component as to how they get the nickname stealerships. And then other situations. Okay, so now it's time to buy parts, service. You no longer have warranty. You got to start buying some parts. The dealerships, you know it as well as I know it. Third party, go online. That's always the best option to find replacement parts. Rock Auto, there's all these different vendors. Euro parts. I mean, I could go on. I don't want to necessarily plug any of these. You've got to learn where your third-party suppliers are, because the dealers, while they can often have to give you the specific engine parts that you have to get specifically at the dealer, anytime you can get something third-party is usually a big win, because dealers are charging you huge money for these parts that clearly aren't worth it. And they talk about these points, those points. There's so many points on the base price of these parts too. So if you're a high volume buyer, if you're another dealership, if you're maybe another preferred local shop, you might actually get better buying power, and they'll give you more points off. And so you'll get a better deal. So in other words, a new starter, your BMW starter might cost you, you go into the dealership and they might charge you $832 for a new starter. But if you get down to it, and I've got a buddy that has the program that you pull up, and it's the dealer program, and he goes right into it. It's a whole network of parts supplies, and they're all the exact same parts that all these dealers have the same access. He even tells me, he looks into it, and I see his program, and he pulls it up, and it tells you part in Vancouver, needs to be shipped in. It's, a day or two, you call to confirm, but that part there wholesale from this manufacturer supplier, you can get, instead of the $800 BMW at list price at the dealership, that part is available for $322 from the supplier. I've seen this. I've seen the back end. I have buddies that actually have that software and that application, and they're able to go right in and get these prices. And I bought from Ed, my mechanic, numerous times for parts for BMWs, Porsches, a lot of Euro parts through that supplier, and it's amazing the amount of markup that they actually put on there. So you've got to shop around, but it's knowing that you're getting gouged on parts as well. The worst part is service. So now you've got to take your car in for servicing. You got this infamous check engine light. This is what people hate. This is where vehicle brands like BMW get such a bad reputation. And I've personally owned vehicles like that in the past, and I can literally attest that you get that the infamous light of despair, the check engine light in a BMW. It is the worst thing, because I can literally, you can use your phone, and there's these little plug-in dongles. You can literally have all your little testers. I'll show you one example. I have one of these. Like, I use this Top Don. This is like, I'm not a plug, but basically here's OBD code reader. You can plug this in right here, and then you have your code reader, and it spits out on there what you actually have for a fault. So I've used that, and I've actually used that for time and time again for resetting codes, replacing parts, and doing my own diagnostics at home, because I'm a bit of a DIYer, as I've already mentioned. If you've watched the channel, you know that. So with that said, I already know what the fault is. And I know a million mechanics are going to probably chime in and call me out and say, well, let's not just plug it in. We've got to diagnose it. And sometimes this fault is caused by these other three elements. And I understand that. And often that there are cases like that. And even, for example, a bad vacuum hose can cause other issues to happen or erupt. EVAP systems, it's complicated. And there are situations where you need deeper diagnosis. I understand that. But you got to start somewhere. And there's been, I would say, in my personal experience, probably 70-80% of the time, I was able to fully diagnose, replace the part, get it online, reset the sensor, reset the check engine light, and I was off to the races. And I did it all at home for pennies on the dollar. So when the dealer says to me, well, we need to do all this diagnostics, when I walk in there with a check engine light, and they say, well, and this is literally it, $250 BMW quoted me to diagnose. A check engine light automatically, there's no negotiations, $250 or we won't take the vehicle in. So they go in there, they check my vehicle in, they pull up the diagnosis or the diagnostics, they charge me that minimum, and then of course they proceed with the repairs as they call me and say, hey, this is your issue, you have an O2 sensor, valid, verified. So you come out of the dealership with not just the cost of changing the O2 sensor, which is the high dealer cost of the part. Then you have the $200 plus shop rate per hour. Then you have shop fees, and they throw gloves and cleaning materials and screws and clips and widgets. And next thing they throw another $52 in shop supplies. And then, of course, the infamous $250 diagnostic. Some dealers will waive it if you actually follow through and complete the repair. Many just tack it on the end. And you end up walking out with, could have been, a $150 repair by you at home, ends up at the dealer costing you $832. And this has happened to me time and time again. And worstly, I've learned, I've gotten past that, and I often do a lot of those repairs myself if I can, if they're not too complex. And it burns me to the core when I hear people constantly getting rooked in that way. And so it's no wonder how these car dealers get the name stealership. It's right from the purchasing, the financing, the trade-ins, the parts, the service. Every corner of the dealership is designed, and the business model is there to extract every single dollar out of your pocket. Now, this isn't a hate on. Dealerships are resources. I mean, we could all go back to horse and buggy, or we could ride bicycles, and maybe in some cases it's better to do that. But for the most part, we need our cars, and they are businesses, and I have to appreciate and respect the fact that dealerships need to make something. They need to make some money. And there is a line in the sand that if they go below that, they're out of business. It's not a profitable business model. So they have to make money. And I understand that. And so there's a little bit of that give and take, and I understand that component. So I realize that I'm not going to cut them right to the core on everything. But at the same token, I don't want to get ripped off, and nobody should be getting ripped off. And that's why, sadly, people call them stealerships. Hope you all enjoyed that, everybody. Check it out right there. What's going on with the truck market? People are truly broke and can't afford to live. Hope to see each and every one in the next one. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.